People with jobs that require you to go into strangers' houses. What is the weirdest thing you've encountered? Story 1. I've had 2 such jobs and oh lordy have I seen some things. Mostly gross, some kind of cool, some that will haunt me. In no particular order, hoarders of various degrees. These honestly blend together in my head. One lady in a decently nice apartment was hoarding plastic bottles for the 5-cent deposit, causing her place to become infested with roaches. The damage and pest control cost significantly more than she was making from the recycling. A little old lady who somehow attached her TV to the apartment complex's surveillance cameras and spent all day watching her neighbors. A fully functioning pigeon coop in the spare room of a top floor unit. This one I try not to think about. There was an apartment designed for people with moderate to severe physical disabilities and low income. There were some war veterans and car crash survivors, but it was mostly old people. On the ground floor was a room with an super old lady from SpongeBob, and I say that with no humor. As far as I could tell, she was not conscious, though she could be spoon-fed, so she couldn't be comatose. Hanging in the air in her small, dark room were 2 Mylar birthday balloons. One said 102. Dang, 102? That's pretty cool that she's been kicking around for that long. But what you described would definitely haunt my dreams. Sounds like something straight out of a horror movie. That old lady watching her neighbors though? That is so freaking hilarious. How did she even do that? I love old people so much sometimes. Story 2. Plenty of dead stuff. I'm a housing officer, and whenever someone's worried about one of our tenants, I end up going to check it out. We aren't allowed to enter someone's house without permission, so end up doing the letterbox sniff. Trademark, to work out what's up. Once you've smelled dead a couple times, you know what's up and just call the police to gain entry. Found plenty of dead people, couple of unforgettable ones. One had a heart attack, fell, cracked his head on the radiator. Died in a huge pool of blood with his head cracked wide open. Sat propped against the wall staring at the door. The worst was a dude who'd been dead for a while and half liquidized into the flooring. Ugh. Our cleaning guys took the carpet after the services had sponged the guy's remains off there, and there was a shape of the man stained into the concrete underneath. Oh my god, ugh. Great time explaining why there was a shadow of a man stained into the concrete to the next tenants. Other than dead people, loads of drugs. Properties being used as a DU really. In a 3-bed house, a hanky-panky toy stash, general filth, neglect and extreme poverty on the almost daily. I feel like I need a shower after reading this one. You are so incredibly brave for doing this job. After the first dead guy, I'd probably just quit and move on. Story 3. Okay, I've got one. I'm a locksmith and there was a foreclosed funeral home that I was rekeying. It was straight out of a bad horror movie in its creepiness. No power at all and barely any light. The basement was 100-year-old masonry, with cadaver slabs and a cremation furnace. Creepy all on its own. However, when the real estate agent and I were sweeping the building, we went to the 2nd floor and there was a makeshift scarecrow with a shirt with a crude face smeared on it. There was also a bedsheet covered in blood, trash strewn about, a pile of cigarette butts, and a couple needles. Then we heard someone in the next room run across the floor. I called out, "I'm just here to change the locks," and held the hammer. Then there was a pause, then the sound of a breaking window, and them climbing out. We immediately left and called the police. The police arrived and swept the building and confirmed the squatter had indeed set up there but was gone. I then went back and started changing locks. After about 30 minutes, we heard the glass shuffle and 2 feet land on the floor. I called out again that we were still there, and we left again. Called the police back and they had me change the locks with an officer on site. A week later, the building was set on fire. Yeah, I think after seeing the scarecrow, I would have pooped myself and just called it a day. The world is probably better off with that building burnt down solely because of the bad vibes I got from reading this alone. Story 4. So this was back when I was a student on a placement in community mental health services. I went out on a visit to see a man who just recently discharged from a medium secure hospital. He had schizophrenia/psychosis. We were going in for a routine checkup. I knock, he opens the door, and this incredible stench just hits us in the face. And I thought I was gonna throw up right there. But alas, my supervisor urges me to go in. We walk into his house and it just smells so bad. My eyes were watering. I keep my composure, we chat to him, and I notice some black thing in his kitchen table. Looks like rotting food, mold, tiny dead mouse, I don't know. So after chatting, I casually ask him what that black thing is, and if he needs help cleaning it up. Oh, it's my toes. What the frick? Yeah, I cut them off. They didn't fit right on my foot. Needless to say, he was immediately readmitted. He reportedly cut them off with a kitchen knife and then seared his wound with a lighter. I believe he had his entire foot/below knee amputated because it got infected. Oh my god, how did you not throw up right then and there? How was he even released? He obviously wasn't that great if he was willing to cut off his own freaking toes. Now my little piggies hurt. Story 5. I'm a pizza delivery driver, so I'm not really going into houses. But this one woman did answer the door wearing some sort of thigh-length nightgown thing and nothing else. Okay, whatever, she was covered just fine. Except when she turned around and bent over to get her money, twice for some reason, and her garment had holes worn out of the fabric directly over both butt cheeks, so you could clearly see her entire butt. These holes were perfectly aligned, one on each cheek, with a little strip of fabric between them, but they honestly looked worn away, not cut or anything. Had she been standing straight, they would have fallen below cheek level. They only lined up when she bent over. Twice. I get that strange women do weird stuff like this to pizza guys sometimes, but I'm not a guy. I'm a woman probably about her age. And I've delivered to her several times before. Maybe she was expecting one of my male coworkers or something. Yeah, I don't know. Seems to me like they're supposed to be that way and just made to look worn out. She might have been waiting for a male coworker and just decided to go with it when you showed up. Or maybe she had her eyes set on you the whole time. Either way, ew. Story 6. I work on my own. I go into a lot of private homes. Hoarders are rare, but it happens. Sadly, older people who are just lonely. Their PC issues are minor, but I'm someone to chat with for a while. One of my regulars is a couple in their late 80s. The old guy always wants me to play checkers with him. If I have the time, I play a few games. He always wins and brags like he won the Super Bowl. One day his wife called in a panic. She said Joe fell in the bathroom and can't get up. I suggest 911, but she says he's okay, just can't get up. So I go over, about 10 minutes. Joe is on the bathroom floor in his underwear, flat on his back. I got him into his wheelchair. His first words were, "Got time for a few games of checkers?" What an absolutely based moment from Joe. They sound like such a sweet couple. I'm so glad they're okay and that you take time out of your day to spend time with them. Story 7. A neighbor called the police after noticing the mail piling outside of a neighbor's house. Never ever a good sign. I get the welfare call and go with a backup car. No answer at the door, so we try to look through all the first floor windows when my partner spots a foot in the hallway. We forced entry and found the elderly female barely alive. She had fallen 2 days earlier and had a broken hip. Fire rescue came and got her to the hospital in time. I know, not the weirdest thing finding her. We had to grab all the prescription medicine we could find to take it to the hospital. It was then that we found her mummified husband sitting in the bedroom chair. Coroner said he had been there for about 6 months. No, come on, that's straight from a horror movie. What? She just kept him there all that time? What happened? I need answers. Story 8. Not me, but my SO. SO used to work for Comcast as an installer and electrician many years ago. He has had lots of odd, funny, alarming stories. My favorite is when he was in the basement of an old house running some wires. He couldn't find the pole for the light, so he was using a small flashlight to look around. So he's looking around and catches eyes in the dark with his flashlight. Goes back and realizes there's many eyes watching him in the dark. As soon as he realizes, he gets creeped out and starts to head for the stairs. Then something starts screaming, which makes him scream. Then the homeowner comes down, turns on the lights, and apologizes for not telling him about the herds of goats that live in the dark basement. Apparently they are easily startled. He said there was probably a dozen of them down there. What? What are they doing in the basement? Your poor husband, oh my god. Story 9. I work as a mobile computer repair / IT service guy. Went into a house to work on a laptop, and they happened to be my next door neighbors. House had an animal smell. People with pets usually do not notice. But this was different. As I sat down to work on the laptop, I heard a loud screech, and a pygmy marmoset jumped from a cabinet onto my head, pulling my hair violently. I then watched as an albino skunk, 3 house cats, 2 small dogs, and various large birds, a Mina African gray, and what I think was some kind of guinea fowl, all appeared from various rooms and furnishings. All the animals were kind of friendly. There was no biting, but the sheer volume of animals in that tiny space was crazy. A few weeks later, the Department of Fish and Wildlife and U.S. Customs raided their house. I found out later that my neighbors smuggled rare animals and had several aquariums full of rare poisonous snakes. But did they check the basement for any goats? They might want to have a look. Story 10. I just want to say that I've been working as a pizza guy for almost 3 years, and I'm terrified of these stories while also wanting something like these to happen to me, just so I can be able to tell a story. The best I can do is that one time the guy didn't have enough cash, so he had to call in his card number to the restaurant. But he was in the middle of a game of Rocket League, so he asked me if I played that game, and I did. So I subbed in for him and got the game-winning save and goal as he was calling the restaurant giving me a generous tip for my efforts. When I was walking out, the guy put his headset back on and said, "Yo, that was the pizza guy," to his friends. Felt good. You should have asked for his Discord or something. I'm sure him and his friends would have welcomed you to the group. As for waiting for a cool story like the others to happen so you can tell one, don't even worry. You already have one of the best ones I've heard so far. Story 11. EMT, but this is from a colleague of mine. He and his partner show up to a scene of a frequent flyer. The caller's an old lady who is lonely and often called just to talk. Well, this time they show up, walk in, and she's super distressed. Ask what's wrong. She says her cat, Mr. Skittles, died earlier that day. They say they're so sorry that happened. She says look, walks over to the freezer and pulls out Mr. Skittle frozen into a block of ice. My friend says they had just been there the other day and the cat hadn't seemed sick then. I don't even want to know what happened to poor Mr. Skittle. Story 12. I'm gonna go wholesome here. My brother was an appliance repairman. He said he never knew who was gonna answer the door. Like others have said, naked people, hungover people, the whole thing. His favorite would be when the toddlers would answer the door. Mom was standing behind them. He said sometimes they would be a dragon or a mermaid or one of the Disney princesses, but the best was the ones you could tell had dressed themselves. Rain boots and bathing suits and a cape and crown. The parents were always so thankful that they just played along with the kids. Your Majesty, thank you for answering the door. Is your mother here? Aw, that is so cute and such a nice break from these other stories. Definitely gave them a core memory playing along with them like that. Story 13. Not me, but my dad, who can tell the story much better than I can. He was once repairing a furnace in the basement of one of his clients' homes. Nobody was home when he suddenly heard a scurrying behind him, but when he looked, nothing was there. This went on several times before he realized the noise was coming from behind the couch. Slowly, he began towards it. As he bent down, a skunk popped out from its hiding spot and met him face to face. Turns out he was a pet, but apparently it really spooked him at the time. And rightfully so, especially because skunks really aren't common as pets. So I bet he thought he was about to get sprayed. That mixed with the scurrying when he thought that nobody was home, that would have anybody terrified. Story 14. I was 20 years old working as an internet installer, just over 10 years ago. A cute girl a little older than me ordered service, so while I was at our house surveying, both flirting, I told her I had to trace some lines down. It was a studio type MIL suite. She was renting behind a house as she was in college. Started tracing lines and had to look behind her bed. It was just a mountain of used tampons. She had been shoving them under and behind her bed. The rest of the house was relatively clean. Also, lots and lots of hoarders. There are so many hoarders. I'm guessing the flirting stopped right after discovering that. Story 15. When I was a caregiver, I was absolutely flabbergasted when I walked into a home where there was dog poop everywhere. No pads, no newspaper, etc., just dog poop. Everywhere. Of all kinds, dried, fresh, broken into bits, whole pieces. There was a capable adult in the house who could have let the dog out. I had to bite my tongue every time I went there and was told to pick it up because I so badly wanted to go. What in the absolute frick is wrong with you, mother frickers? How do you live like this when I'm not here? Not only is that disgusting for the people, but that poor dog shouldn't have to live in its own feces either. Some people are just so lazy and gross. Story 16. Used to babysit for a family. Great family, good kids, but I swear they had no organization at home. Piles of clothes where they could fit, toys scattered everywhere. When I tried to clean one time, I was told by them all not to worry. Stacks of papers and what seemed to be important documents, and the house appeared to be perpetually in the middle of construction. I could forgive all of that. All of that, if they just put the food in their kitchen away. Story 17. I'm an EMT, so I've seen lots of hoarders, human and animal waste, etc. But the most aggravating day was when my partner and I got fleas from this dude's house. Our ambulance was swarming with fleas. Her and I were covered in fleas. We could see them jumping around. There were so many, we had to mark our service to decontaminate the truck and ourselves. It was awful and itchy. Story 18. I used to help my dad, who was a real estate appraiser. We went into this one house that was in the mountains. It was vacant. One room looked like it had black carpeting. When we looked closer, we found out the floor was covered in dead flies. The only room in the house like that. I think I just threw up in my mouth. How the frick did they even all get in there? Story 19. Whole living room was set up like a strip club with a stage and stripper pole. Story 20. A goat in the living room. The mother came down and shooed it outside. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. Please like and subscribe for more videos to come, or else this spider will be in your bed tonight.